Hi, folks. This is Harold Ree with the Paw Print Animal Rescue Podcast. Wanted to let you know about some sad news. Shimmer, the greyhound featured in episode 23 just a few weeks ago, died this week. While he was getting older, his death was unexpected. Shimmer and Joan Chaplick were our guests on the first episode of our popular Greyhound Week series. And we asked Joan Chaplick for some closing thoughts. She writes, "He was so confident and happy, and he knew your life would be better for knowing him. And he was right. Rest in peace, Shimmer. Now on to the show."
My name is Melanie Gilbert, and if I could be any animal in the world, I would be one of my own dogs. My dogs just sleep all day. When they want a treat, anything they want or need is right there.
This is Paw Print, an animal rescue community, episode 32. I'm Harold Ree.
I'm Nancy Ree. Today's guest is the talented Melanie Gilbert. Melanie is a co-founder of Street Mutts, an organization with an international focus on the plight of street animals. They work to develop educational programs to improve animal welfare. We get to learn about Melanie, co-founder Melissa Palomo, and the Street Mutts mission.
Now, after this interview was recorded, Melissa and Melanie announced a partnership with NicaVets and sister organization RVETS, two great organizations that focus on animal health for dogs, cats, horses, and other animals in Nicaragua. If you want to learn more about Street Mutts and see some of Melissa Palomo's awesome photography, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/32. That's the number 32.
My name is Melanie Gilbert. I am the co-founder and vice president of Street Mutts, which is a nonprofit organization. I co-founded it with my partner, Melissa Palomo, who currently lives in Los Angeles. Her passion is pet photography, and she does own a business called Melissa's Perspective Photography. She's a foster mom for French Bulldog Rescue Network, FBRN. And like myself, Melissa loves traveling. And as a photographer, she would always take her camera with her. And when she would be traveling, instead of taking pictures of the monuments and the sites that everyone else takes pictures of, Melissa always found herself drawn to the animals and to taking pictures of all of the street animals that she would find. She found herself eventually with quite a large collection of these street animal pictures, and at that point in time knew she wanted to do something with them but didn't know what. And so she registered this domain name, streetmutts.com, again really not knowing what to do with it, but just knowing that there was some sort of plan, that was something was going to happen. She wanted to be able to take these pictures and say, look at these animals, look at what you can do to help them. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, born in a very small town in Pennsylvania with a population of about 2,000 people. When I was 17 or 18, I moved to State College, which is where Penn State is, and to go to school there.
Nittany Lions.
Nittany Lions, yes. Got my undergraduate in business, and while I was there, I met my husband. So I spent the second half of my life in State College. I worked for Penn State, and I actually do still currently work for Penn State. I work in the Office of International Programs, which was really great for me because it afforded me the opportunity to travel to quite a few different countries, experience different cultures, and see the animals there. Mm-hmm. I started horse riding when I was 7. I got my first horse when I was 10, and my current horse was born when I was 16. So I've had him for 19 years. He just turned 19 this summer. We moved out to San Francisco this past April, and the horse followed this summer, so he's out here as well. So I've always had a love of animals. It all started with horses. As I got older, it really kind of moved to dogs. So I still love horses, but I love dogs. Once I moved to State College, I started to get involved in some local rescues. I volunteered for an organization called Pets Come First for a long time in State College, both as a volunteer and as a foster mom for dogs. So in 2007, I started a master's program in youth and family education. I thought that I would want to work with shelter dogs and at-risk youth. I found out very quickly that I am not cut out to work with at-risk youth. You have to have a certain personality to work with a lot of these kids, and I don't have that personality. I finished my classes in 2009. At that point, I had to decide what my thesis was about, and I didn't know. In 2013, I went to Bangladesh and Nepal with a faculty member that I work with at Penn State. Really, it was in Nepal that, we were driving around, and there are street dogs everywhere in Nepal. I mean, in Kathmandu, I've never seen so many street dogs everywhere. And another faculty member that I was traveling with from Ohio State, she said, well, what do you want to do with your grad program? And it just hit me like, this is what I want to do. I want to work with street animal populations internationally. So I came home, I posted online to this group of women that I have been a part of for probably about 10 years now. This was my idea. This is what I wanted to do. And Melissa was part of this group. She immediately contacted me and said, let's work together, because I think that with your educational programming and my images, we could really do something with this. So that's how Street Mutts was born.
What have you done up till this point?
I started to put some ideas in motion. I contacted an organization in Thailand called Soy Dog Foundation. Really wonderful organization. They work mainly in Phuket. They also have an office in Bangkok, and they work in northern Thailand as well to combat the dog meat trade. And I said, I noticed that you don't have any educational programming that you talk about on your website. Is this something that you'd be interested in? And if so, is this something that I can work with you on? To my great surprise, they wrote back and said, yeah, let's talk. It took a couple months of planning, but Melissa and I went to Thailand in January of 2014. And that was actually the first time that we had met in person, was in Thailand. We were at Soy Dog for about 2 weeks. They set up a lot of meetings with us, with school administrators, with community officials, so that we were able to talk about the needs in the community and the possibility of getting some educational programming into their schools, which is really difficult because you're talking about changing the curriculum. We got home from Thailand, and I got to the point where I was ready to start developing some programming for them. And I realized that I don't know what works. We didn't end up developing the programming that we had hoped to. Instead, surveyed 340 some organizations worldwide on their educational programming and practices, and if they didn't have any, on what their needs were within their communities, so that I could have an idea of who's doing what and why and what do they need. So that has ultimately formed our database of organizations that we currently have for potential partnerships. At this point, we've identified one organization. We want to start very small. We don't want to partner with 10 different organizations and stretch ourselves so thin that we can't.
What's the ideal number of partners that you're looking for?
Right now, one.
Okay.
We want a partner that, we can go in and see how this whole process is going to work, because, we're going to have to go visit them and do a needs analysis, then come home and develop a programming specific to each community. We want custom programs. Communities and cultures are so different depending on the region, on what's going on economically, socially, politically, with religion. So we are going to go in and really talk to the community and community leaders, people who love dogs and people who don't like dogs and see dogs as a problem, and talk to them about what do you see as the issues, and then develop programming that really addresses the issues that is specific to each community that we work in. A lot of the problem with organizations right now is that they're so overwhelmed with time and money in just focusing on dealing with the day-to-day animals that need help right now, that there's just not the time, the money, the people to focus on doing something that will changed it in the long term. So
you just gave us the comprehensive, all-encompassing view.
Yeah.
If I ran into you in an elevator and you had 10 seconds to tell me what Street Mutts is going for, what would you say?
The mission of Street Mutts is to partner with local organizations to develop customized educational programming that addresses specific issues within those communities in order to allow the communities to live more harmoniously with their street animal populations.
Okay. Do you try to promote spay and neuter?
Yes. In my survey of organizations, one thing that a couple of my questions actually focused on prioritizing issues within communities, and spay and neuter consistently was at the very top. I think 98% of organizations ranked it as the highest priority. So spay and neuter is always going to be something that we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about, a lot of times our programming will focus on the benefits of spay and neuter over other population management methods. So for example, a lot of times if there is a big push for population management, it is because of an incident. So say a child was attacked in the street and all of a sudden it's in the news and the government needs to do something about it. And so they call the population, or they try to call the population. And they do that either by rounding the dogs up and shooting them, or they do it by poisoning them, or they stick them all in a gas chamber. And all of a sudden the streets are clean for about 6 months. And the problem with calling, other than, the inherent violence in how it's done, is that it's never, ever an effective long-term solution. Because when you call a population of animals, you're capturing animals that are typically already friendly. So these animals are usually already cared for by the community, and the animals that you're going to be able to catch are the friendliest. They're probably already vaccinated. They're the least likely to bite. And they actually create a barrier for the community from the more wild feral dogs who
Who are survivors.
Who are more likely to bite, who are more likely to carry diseases.
So what are you shooting for 2016? What big plans so far?
Yeah, so we're really excited about 2016. We're in talks with an organization in Nicaragua for our very first partnership. And so we're very excited. We wanted to first partner with an organization that is fairly close to the United States in case the partnership requires more travel than initially anticipated. It's a lot easier to get to South America than it is to get to Eastern Europe or Africa at this point.
Sure.
There's a lot of things that we want to look at for this first partnership that will form what our future partnerships look like.
Can you talk a little, you talked a lot about the stray animal problem in Asian countries, but in Latin America, what are the issues there?
My survey that I did, actually, we had 0 countries in South America that responded, which was really odd because we had representation from organizations all over the world except for South America. We did have some Latin American countries, and of course, spay and neuter was a top priority. Kindness to animals, just humane treatment of animals. Rabies is not an issue in Latin America or South America for that matter. So that's something that we wouldn't focus on at all.
Do you know why? Did they do a better job of vaccinating their animals?
I don't know why historically.
That would be interesting.
Rabies, for the most part, is really an issue in Asia and in Africa. I don't have the exact figure, but I want to say something like 66% of rabies cases were in Asia.
Maybe we should rewind the clock back a little bit, and you want to talk a little bit about your childhood, growing up.
I had a wonderful childhood. I was outside a lot. We didn't have computers at that point, so I wasn't stuck in front of a computer all day. And basically, I lived outside. I lived at the horse barn because that was, at the time, my passion was horses and horse riding. I had a dog. His name was Sabaka. He a lot of people, or I've heard people talk about a heart dog, the dog that shapes you. And Sabaka was my heart dog. Like, I just loved this dog.
And how old were you at the time?
He was in my life until he died. He was 17 years old. And I was maybe 14 when he died. And so he was there until I was a teenager. And he was the best dog ever. I really loved him. Sabaka, incidentally, my family, my great-grandfather was Ukrainian. And Sabaka actually means male dog in Ukrainian. So that's where he got his name from, male dog. And so I grew up with Sabaka, and then once he passed away, we had a second dog named Ebony. All of our dogs, of course, actually, Sabaka might not have been, but with Ebony on, our dogs were all rescued animals. I'm pretty sure Sabaka was as well, but I wasn't there when my parents got him, obviously. I remember I used to practice more so with Ebony, the second dog. I used to practice, different dog training techniques, and he would count on the floor by hitting his paw on the floor. So I would say, Ebony, what is 1,000 divided by, or 100 divided by 20? And he would hit the floor 5 times with his paw. And of course he was reading my body language to know when to stop. He obviously didn't know the answer to the question. But he was like a party favorite because I had a blast teaching him new things. And so then I went away to college, was on the equestrian team there for 2 years at Penn State. I went to Penn State University because it was so close. It's about 2 hours from where my parents live, and it was close to my horse, and that's that's what made me choose Penn State. So I had been riding since I was 7, and I just absolutely love horse riding, and I still do. I did, a lot of competitions when I was younger, but mainly just local competitions, 4-H type stuff. It was never high level. I was never really that good. They had tryouts for this equestrian team, and I was like, this is awesome. And so I tried out, and I made the team. There's competitions among other universities that also have equestrian teams. I was never selected to ride in the competitions, which made me a little sad. But it was a way for me, being away from home, to continue to do something that really was very important to me at the time. And at that time, my horse at home was, when I was a freshman in college, he was 2 years old. So he was too young for me to be riding him. But by the time he was 4, after I had been on the team for 2 years, when I decided not to continue on the team, he was 4 years old. He was at the point where it was time for me to start to really train him and focus a lot of time on him. So I brought him to college with me into my junior year and boarded him there and focused on his training.
With your sort of international focus, coming back to the United States or any other place really, what kind of advice can you offer to the animal rescue community at large?
For me, it's all about following what my passion is. And my passion has just grown over the past 10 years and is really truly dogs and helping dogs and traveling and exploring. And so I took my 2 passions and trying to combine them into something that really will make a difference in the long term.
Education and
animals, yeah. So I would just say, for anyone that's interested in or already working with an animal related cause in the Bay Area or anywhere in the US or internationally, just find your passion and your niche and focus on that. It doesn't, it can be a certain breed, it can be a certain country, it can be anything in particular, but there's always a niche there. Just find that and focus on what really, really interests you. You'll find that it's very fulfilling.
With you and Melissa growing this, what have you learned about yourself? The sense I get from this interview is that you and Melissa are still sort of learning. What have you learned about yourself? What do you find that you really enjoy? What about this process has been less than enjoyable? Yeah,
so what I've really learned from myself is that I can do this. And that has always been a struggle with me, is just having that self-confidence to know that Street Mutts was an idea. And all of a sudden it wasn't, it was an actual thing. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, are we actually doing this? Like, is this going to happen? And it did, and it is, and we're continue to take steps to move it forward. And it's really, really terrifying, because what if we fail? And the thing is that failure is probably inevitable in everything that you do at some point. And if you do fail, you just pick up and move forward. And so the biggest thing that I've learned is that I really can do this, and that I'm going to continually be scared every step that we take, and I just have to work through it step by step by step. Things are going to fall into place. This is something that I really love, and it's worth it. It's worth the effort that we're putting into it, and I can do it.
How do people find you? How do people find Street Mutts? And any calls to action? It could be donations. It could be some kind of awareness.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so you can find us at streetmutts.com.
And by the way, it's a beautiful website.
Oh, thank you. Melissa designed it,
Okay.
and all of the photos on the website are Melissa's photos. We also have a social media presence. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. I can be reached at melanie@streetmutts.com. Melissa can be reached at melissa@streetmutts.com. We're really going to start fundraising in order to fund this partnerships, to fund our travel and any supplies that we need to get down to this organization and start the workings of the partnership. There is a link to PayPal for donations. We are a 501c3 organization, so we can provide tax receipts. Any donations are tax deductible.
Question: if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing with the state of animal rescue here or globally, what would that one thing be?
Animal rescues here in the U.S. and outside of the United States never, ever, ever have enough funding to do the work that they need to do. My other truly magic wand wish: elimination of apathy. There's just so much apathy here, both in the US and internationally, where if the issues if you don't see them, you don't think about them. And I just really feel like if people truly knew what went on here, both in the US and internationally, in regards to pet overpopulation and abuse and just things that go on, I have to believe that they would be compelled to take action.
Thanks to Melanie Gilbert for sharing her story. And we want to wish Melanie and Melissa good luck on their new partnership with NicaVets and sister organization RVETS. If you want to learn more or would like to make a donation, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/32. If you want to nominate someone to be a future guest on the Paw Print Animal Rescue podcast, simply send us an email at thisispawprint@gmail.com or go to our contact page at thisispawprint.com/contact. If you want to find me or Nancy on social media, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Look for This Is Paw Print, all one word. If you'd like to listen to more episodes, you can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. And for those of you who use Android phones, rumor has it, Google Play may start introducing podcasts on their app in the next few weeks. So look for Paw Print on Google Play. We want to say thank you to all of you, our listeners out there, for sharing your stories. And we want to welcome listeners from Asheville, North Carolina, Flint, Michigan, and Norman, Oklahoma. You spread a positive message of love and peace by saving an animal. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next time on Paw Print.
Paw Print is a production of EVER Education.
You can't handle the truth!
Woohoo!